You know it's this. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowing like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look up better. Put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheaper again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the fourth part of What If Deku Meets Powerpuff Girls. Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of ChiWriters on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. Central Plaza. We need to try and get as many of us out of here as possible. Izuku mentioned as they got into shallower water. The duo managed to land close to land safely after escaping from the trouble. Izuku wanted to go back and help Buttercup out, but remembering how she took the initiative to help protect them made him reassured enough to believe she could handle herself. Aizawa is still fighting in the plaza. If possible we should try to stay along the edge and not attract attention. Tsu agreed as they got towards the shore. They just had to keep their heads down and get as many of their classmates to safety as possible. That would have remained the plan too. If not for the two suddenly seeing Aizawa attacked by the guy covered in severed hands. The man dodged Aizawa's capture scarves and the two engaged in close quarters combat. It appeared that Aizawa had landed the first blow with a strong elbow strike. But that quickly went out the window as the villain and the pro separated and Aizawa's right elbow looked like the skin had been removed. None of the two teens could make out what was being said, but in an instant, the situation went from bad to worse. The large multi-quirked monster moved so fast that Aizawa didn't catch it. Hell, the only reason Izuku could see it move was because he was at a distance. Even then it had only been a blur that lasted less than the time it took to blink. Aizawa was slammed into the ground, face first, and then a sickening crack was heard as the behemoth crushed the pro's left arm. How do you like our anti-symbol of peace, the bioengineered, Nomu? The apparent leader questioned loudly, a deranged chuckle in his raspy voice as he looked at the injured pro. Bioengineered? Izuku blinked at the term. That thing isn't human. It's some horrific creation made in a lab. How? Why? Just to kill All-Might? He thought to himself as the monster snapped Aizawa's right arm too. Shigaraki Tamura, the voice of the warp gate user, came from a swirling mass of the purple-black smoke. The villain that had scattered the students was now standing close to the leader and their monster. Kurogyri, did you manage to kill 13? Tamura questioned the fog-like villain. Out of commission, but there were students that I was unable warp all away. One of the special girls was able to help another of the students escape as well, a speed quirk of some type. I don't think we'll have much time before the other heroes arrive. Emphasizing a certain word in his speech. DMN it, Tamura scratched at his neck furiously. We can't handle a full wave of reinforcements. You're lucky that you're our ticket out of here, Kurogyri. Otherwise I'd turn you to dust for failing. What do you want to do, Shigaraki Tamura? Kurogyri questioned the leader. It's game over, man, for now at least. Tamura growled, we're leaving. Did he just say leaving? Izuku sounded surprised. That's what I heard. Tsuyu nodded in confirmation. It seemed too good to be true. I've got a bad feeling about this, Midoriya. Tsu had justified doubts. Yeah, to do all of this and then just leave on a whim, something's not right. Izuku watched as the villain spoke quietly for a second. But before that, Tamura turned to face the students in the water. Let's leave a few dead kids. Suddenly the lanky man was blitzing in their direction. To wound the pride of the symbol of peace. He reached out with his hand, towards Tsu's face. The hand touched Tsu's face, but nothing happened. Both teens were in still shock at that instance. Tamura ched and knew what had happened, looking back to see Eraser had activated his quirk in that instance, even with the severe injuries he got. You really are cool, Eraserhead. At that, the Nomu slammed the hero's face into the ground once again, deactivating his quirk. Izuku could not let this go on for any longer. Snapping out of his shock, he acted. Activating One for All, directing it to his arm. Oh CRP, 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 I can't stand by and let this go on. Gotta save Tsu. Let go of her. Izuku exclaimed while delivering a punch. Smash. As the fist seemed to make impact, it caused a gust of winds that swept area around them, causing the waters to wave, villains around to fall back against the air pressure and light bulbs to shatter. When the chaos died down, Izuku realized that his arms were not damaged at all, thinking he could better control his quirk. Nope. For the Nomu took the brunt of his force and absorbed it, due to its quirk use. What a nuisance. Nomu, I'm done with him, Tamura ordered his weapon. That being said, the creature took hold of his outstretched hand and swung him up to deliver a blow to him. Tsu tried to save him, ejecting a tongue to grab a hold of him, but as she did so, Tamura was about to lay his hands again to disintegrate her. It was as if in slow motion, as if time slowed down. Just as everything was about to go down. Izuku suddenly felt a sudden shift in his head, that for a second took his fear off the situation, that is till. A huge explosion went off from the shipwrecked vessel that caused everyone to stop in surprise. Out of the smoke and debris, a green light shone from it. Taking a look at what had just happened, she couldn't but wonder, is that Buttercup? Tsu questioned herself. But her thoughts were proven right, as the figure jumped up into the air, igniting into green flames. Finally shot down like a comet, landing a few feet away from them. As the dust died down, flames encircled around her, flames coated certain areas of her body as if she was on fire herself. Silence took over the scene. Her eyes were quickly brought down to the sight of her teacher in a pool of his own blood. Then to her two classmates in danger. Without a word, she blazed over to the monster, snatching the teacher and the two, while the villains were in a daze, before safely dropping them down. Buttercup, you're all right. Izuku's voice filled with happiness. Buttercup didn't respond to what he said, only averted her eyes towards a different person. She sent a deadly glare over to the two villains in front of her. Ugh, what kid, you think you can beat my Nomu? Scratching his neck in irritation. I was told about you and I don't care if he says you are somewhat special. You are nothing compared to All Might. Gesturing for the Nomu to attack. The creature charged at her now. Before it could even lay a finger on her, she charged up her fire and concentrating the energy into her fist. Moments before it could finally attack, she launched a punch at the creature point blank and hurtled it back into the water with a boom, sending up a backsplash. Huh? Tamura questioned in shock. Is that really what you call a super weapon? What a joke. Everyone whipped their heads towards the voice. Buttercup, standing there, a sadistic smirk, not letting the fires extinguish. Tamura just chuckled at those words. What a CBRT. You honestly think that was enough to defeat my little friend? Said. Creature jumped out of the water and landing right next Tamura again, unfazed. Izuku, Tsu, and those who saw were stunned at either Buttercup's attack or the creature's resilience. Buttercup, even seeing it up close, was not fazed at the slightest. Nomu, finish her. Once ordered, the monster disappeared in a blur. Before anyone could react, it appeared right before the raven-haired girl and with a strong swipe, backhanded so hard that she slammed back into the wall. Buttercup. Seeing the girl not moving was a bad sign. Ha ha ha. I knew she was not so special. Now, trailing off, Tamura looked over to Eraserhead and the two students and saw an opening. Finish them. He ordered, and without hesitation, the monster charged after them. They all tensed, Izuku resorting to fight back. That is until ice formed and trapped the monster, bringing it to a halt. Shoto appeared, one side of his body frozen with a foot on ice. Honestly, what were two thinking? Only All Might is the only one to handle this. He sounded unimpressed. On top of the stairs, everyone was waiting in bated breath at what would happen next. Someone turned to spot another one of their classmates. It was Kirishima, who was carrying a passed-out classmate. Great. At least we made it. Stopping a good distance away from the present fight. He looked over his shoulder to inspect if Blossom had woken up yet. So far she has been in the same state of unconsciousness, but fine. The creature broke out of the ice prison with only losing a right arm and leg. But before anyone could sigh in relief, the monster was regenerating its missing limbs with ease, much to the concern of the others. Ha 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 ha. Did you honestly believe that shock absorption was its only quirk? My Nomu was carefully designed to defeat All Might, all you are doing is providing it with a less than adequate workout. Tomura mocked the distressed students. Everyone who heard that were more worried than ever at that. They didn't know what to do about the present situation. Not only is the weapon of All Might's supposed elimination seemingly unbeatable to them, but there were still villains around the plaza and ready to attack. Ida left not too long ago, but after the stress he went through with his own battle, he might be too tired and lag a bit behind. Not only that, but 2 teachers are injured, students are still missing, and 1 student might be severely injured as well. Izuku looked at the present situation and could not help but wonder if there was simply a way out of this for the others. Maybe, if I can distract the monster long enough, the others could get out and ensure their safety. Mused over the idea, even though it was risky, he saw no other way. But his thoughts were cut off by an injured teacher's qualm. Get out of here, Aizawa, staggering, trying to step on his own 2 feet, said. You are in dire trouble. Even with the severe state he is in, he was willing to protect them still. But he was in no condition to fight. Even if his injuries were healed, he would still not match up to it again. I am quite bored of these stupid games. He signaled the Nomu to finally attack. Izuku knew what he had to do, even if it means sacrificing his own life to protect the people he cares about, he would. Powering one for all, he was ready to meet the creature head-on. The monster was charging forward, growling out. But before either party could make a move, a wall of green flames moved in between the two, and for a moment, there was stunned silence that quickly turned to gasps on who did this. Who said I was done with ugly? Turning their heads, they saw the previously defeated girl standing a sizable distance away. She did not look to be nearly as injured as everybody thought, except for some scrapes on and torn hero suit. Buttercup, not losing her sadistic smile, turned to the object of her wrath. Nice shot, I give you that, but I am not done fighting. She said as if she thought it was a game of some sort. That left everyone reeling back from the weird and somewhat scary speech. TCH, seriously, kid? You're persistent, I can give you that, but you are just dash. Before he could finish, Buttercup lunged forward, aiming a punch that connected to the monster's torso, giving off a loud boom. It seemed like it didn't do anything due to the creature's quirk, but before anyone could say anything, a green glow formed around the area. A green beam shot through and out the back. The creature staggered backwards from the surprising attack, which left a large hole in it. TCH. You were saying creepy. She said, giving a smirk. Todoroki frowned with annoyance and surprise, even stopped in the middle of a battle in the process. How the heck did she do that? Izuku came up beside him, wide-eyed. I don't know. Tomura was also someone who noticed Nomu's sudden idleness, to his indignation. You're not gonna take that, are you? Tomura shouted angrily at the creature, hurry up and heal, you useless lug. Buttercup crossed her arms, not even losing her smirk. This has been fun, but it's payback time. Time to put ugly down. Charging at the monster, she unleashed a flurry of punches and kicks. Each strike was laced with green flames that gave her more strength as well as greater damage to the monster. Every time she would land a hit, the monster would give his own, but it did nothing to slow her down. Everyone looked at her as if it was impossible for what was going to even happen. When she stepped back, the monster was still standing, but it seemed to be on its last fire. The damage to the hole seemed to slowly be regenerating, which was proving to be a pain. Buttercup was slowly losing herself and she needed to hold back, but doing that would lead her classmates in danger. She needed a plan, and when she looked around, she caught the sight of Blossom, who seemed out of it. That was enough to make her blood boil at the thought of whichever green punks did to her. She then took the time to realize a little design flaw in the creature. Its exposed brain. Nomu. Stop playing and finish that wench already. You were made to fight All Might, not lose to some hero wannabe. Tomura was at his limit and shouted for it finally end it. The monster shook off the wear and tear, and with regenerated body, it lunged with newfound speed. Charging at Buttercup, who was waiting for the attack. Many thought she was tired and could not move, but they were simply mistaken. As the monster lunged forward with a swipe, jumped over it, and with plasma infused in her hands, delivered the last blow. Say goodbye, ugly. She thrusted her hand into the creature's brain, and without waiting, unleashed an blast of some kind of static plasma blast that enveloped too. The creature was shrieking from the sensation of until it completely stopped. Falling to its knees as it hit the ground with a thump. At that moment a boom could be heard. The entrance to the USJ practically exploded as All Might himself appeared at the top of the stairs. The man wasn't wearing his usual smile. In fact, he looked downright pissed. The blonde man tore off his blue tie and tossed it aside. Have no fear, students. I am here. All Might declared, even as the rest of the pro heroes from UA appeared alongside him. Ida was seen, looking worn out, just behind the teachers. He had fulfilled his role perfectly and brought reinforcements. All Might. Before Buttercup could shut down her powers, something dangerous was looming around. The Nomu that had been defeated stood up before everyone, leaving everyone shocked. Nomu. I knew you could not be defeated. From behind the hands, Tomura regained a malicious smirk. That moment of triumph died, a devilish laughter was heard. Ha 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 ha. No, you silly fool. A familiar effeminate voice echoed, leaving everyone who heard and knew stunned. What the you? Tomura said. What is going on? Todoroki questioned, confused. Buttercup, white as a sheet, froze when she heard that unmistakable voice. It's him. Hello, Buttercup. Surprised to see me? Oh well, months of no sign of my existence can really put one at ease, huh? His voice has a fake hurt tone, but you could honestly tell the difference. Anyway, I just want to let you know that this was fun seeing you fight my little toys and all, but like I always say, I will always be watching. An evil laugh that brought chills to everyone resounded. Everyone on the stairs could not understand what was going but did not like the zombie Nomu. Ha 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 dash, the laughter died down when intense burning flames engulfed the monster. Izuku looked to the one who did that and knew something was way wrong. Buttercup with her hand raised, shaking with rage. Anger? No, with fear. Young Kayama. Get away from there or you'll dash. All Might's booming voice was cut off by another one. Ah! A shout rang to the ceiling of the USJ. Then a pulse of energy gave out of her body, shaking the ground around her. Everyone including the teachers were shocked by this. She released a pulse wave that knocked people around her on their back. Everything would have come to a head if. Tired eyes opened to the screams of whom all too familiar to her. Buttercup. Flashback, in the vortex. HUH, was all that him could say as he lay his eyes upon a scene that made him do a double take. The girls were giving off a pure glow of energy, consisting of pink, green, and blue sparkles that morphed to white light. The light was set off and shot at him, who was still trying to blast them but was being pushed back. The light flew forth, hitting all the corners of the dimensional plane. In that moment, him let out an angry growl, before attempting a last-ditch effort. Unknown forest. In the forest close to a nearby mountain area, a red and black vortex cracks open in the sky, a being falls to the ground with a loud thud. The noise gave a resounding boom, frightful enough to make all the creatures nearby to scatter and get away from the source of it. As the dust settled, unveiling him, he rose to his feet, a touch out of breath and wobbly to his knees. He shook the all too unnerving feelings rising up in his mind, all too familiar terrors from his past. His mind started buzzing, thoughts racing to catch up with each other as the events that had recently happened is all too phasing. His eyes shone flickers of an evil red, teeth bared and sharp. He only calms himself for a split second at a time, blinded by a bubbly rage that forces the being to go finish what he intended to do. Attempting to summon the vortex, but he failed. He then wanted to call upon a force to find those BRTS but again failed. He was starting to lose his patience ever more slowly. He then realized what could have happened. Now he could not contain his nerves, coming to the realization, he sends out an ear-splitting shout, infused in a dark pulse that shook the trees and earth beneath his feet. After taking out his internal frustration, extinguishing the plant matter at a 1-mile radius, quite tamed. He takes a deep breath, recovering his all-too-familiar smile, he reassessed the situation. It seems that I acted too brash to allow those girls to enter my inner sanctum, underestimating them in the process. When I attempted to end those goody-goodies, they somehow reversed my attack and caused a temporal distortion in my portal. The thought of that made him more mad. In doing so, they seem to have trapped me in this other world, that I am not too familiar with. How interesting, maybe I could have some fun here. He deduced at that. Now, I am currently cut off from my source. He mused the whole situation, and rather than feeling the same rage, he had a new wave of joy at the whole situation. If I am here, so must those girls as well. And that means, if I play my cards right, they will be my key to heading back to Townsville and quite possibly having some fun while I am on it. A dark chuckle was let out. Now, if this is to work, I must act fast while I am still at a satisfied strength, but the entertainment I may plan along the way, could be enough to sustain me. Oh well, let me understand what backwater dimension I have found myself upon. At that, a dark miasma was released from both his claws, traveling forth into all direction, gathering the necessary information to relay back to their MSTR. After less than half an hour passed, the miasma was withdrawn back to him, taking in all the delicious new information of the world he is currently on. Ah, so that's it. Well, this world seems to have its own promise after all, my plan will surely be fun. Then another tidbit of information on a particular being on the mountain caught his attention. But first, let us check on a lonely creature on that there mountain. Laughter could be heard, before a cloud of red smoke wisped through the clearing, only promising chaos to all in its way. Months into the new life. Months have gone by and him has been adapting to the new world that he has been unfortunately trapped himself in. In that PRD of time, he found out that the Powerpuff Girls were definitely in this world as well, not surprising when he saw on the news of how they made their debut by illegally saving a person in trouble without permission, quite amusing. But it gives him more joy to know his favorite little girls are still definitely around for him to play with. He had been keeping himself busy throughout his stay in this world. What he had gathered was quite amusing to say the least. The world is by far different from that of Townsville, whereas the people of his world were practically ordinary. This world is mostly made up of those with certain abilities, quirks as they put it. It seems that they have placed a pedestal for individuals who are born with such powers, whether they are deeply pathetic, it is established to be a social pariah to be born without one. Much like the PPGs, these individuals, under the government laws and control, use their abilities to save those in need. But not all those who wear a hero suit are saints, as him has come to find out. Some are just wolves in sheep clothing. Him has found a better dwelling to best hide out of sight. He transforms into a disguise, best suited to carry out his little errands and investigations, but most times, he gets his little helpers to scope out the darker sides of the streets, where he cannot risk tipping off the girls' senses. Him was lounging in his bath, when one of his helpers returned back from today's patrol. Looking up from his daze. What is it? Can't you see I am busy? Agitation was slowly pouring from his voice, slightly flinched at that but not deterred, the being approached with a certain proposition offered. Listening closely, him could not help but muse over the sudden information. I see. Well, that was somewhat important, I suppose. Very well, you may go. For now. With that, he was left to his thoughts. I see that interesting being has located me, finally. I guess his little spies are just as good at tracking me down as mine are. Stepping out of the bath, water cascading his body as he wrapped a towel around his waist. I believe this could work in my plan, but I must be presentable. First impressions are everything, he said in a sing-song voice as he left to change. Unknown location. The villain hideout was none other than an abandoned bar located far off from the city. The place on the outside looked shabby and inhabitable but could not be said about the inside. Inside the bar was inhabited by certain unsavory individuals. One being a mist man in a decent-looking suit, manning behind the bar counter, seemingly cleaning some glass cups while minding his business. That being said, a certain young man playing video games, dismembered hands attached around his face and certain parts of his body was situated on the couch. Stopping what he was doing, the bar man addressed the young man. Young MSTR, I believe you should drop your game and prepare for certain company arriving. Carefully putting away the last of the cups. Looking irritated, the young man paid no heed to the advice of Mist Man, focused still on the game. As the minutes passed, it was just about time for Sensei's special guest to arrive. And speak of the devil and he shall appear. The door swung open with a bang, letting a dark red mist into the room. The attendants of the bar were on high alert, prepared to handle whoever was brave or stupid enough to attack their secret hideout. Then an eerie voice came forth. Ah, hope I wasn't too late to meeting. A silhouette making its way through the door. Both individuals narrowed their eyes at that. You know how it is. Trying to get ready is not easy, especially if you don't really know what to expect. The voice took a dark tone as the being came into light. They didn't know what to expect, a gruesome monster, an underworld DRG peddler or even maybe Jiren. But what they did not expect was him, and not in the normal way. In terms of appearance, he could be mistaken quite easily if you didn't look hard enough. His red skin became white-yellow, like of a typical human. Eyes shone a mesmerizing lime green, lips were black with no makeup whatsoever but still had his typical long lashes. His hair was still black widow's peak hair, a pointed nose and straightened beard. And he still had his red large crab claws. Him, still staying true to his theatrical nature and style came dressed. His color scheme was red, black with pink accents. Stepping forward in what appeared to be in black stiletto high-heel ballet boots with no strings on them. He wore a red suit jacket, opening just slightly to reveal his not-so-hairy chest, with a red miniskirt. Pink tulle adorned the end of the skirts, arms and collar of the jacket. With all that, the thing that unnerved the two fellows was the big smile that shone anything but kindness. Well, gentlemen, I do believe I am in the mood for a drink. Who do I need to inquire about that, pray tell? Him made his way over to a lounge chair, seemingly unbothered by the glares from a particular young man. He seems unhinged and untrusting. Oh well, bigger and better fish to fry, I suppose. Musing over that thought, till a tray carrying a cup of whiskey was presented before him by the Mist Man. Before he was about to take hold of it, he froze mid-take when the whole setting turned to ashes before everybody's eyes. Who are you to walk up into our bar and make yourself comfortable? Speak before Kurojiri will have a bigger mess to clean. The young boy practically snarled at him behind the hand. But him being himself, did not lose his smile, on the contrary, it just grew wider at the individual's threat. There was an unnatural laugh from him as he stood up before the punk at 7 feet. Now, let us not do anything reckless, him's high effeminate tone came out. I was told by your sensei to come here for a chat, not to be threatened. But if I have to get my claws dirty, I will make an example with you. Now a low dark tone resounded out, emphasizing his warning. It looked to be that time had frozen as both sides did not give an inch unless provoked. Kurogyri, not wanting a bigger mess than he has to clean, intervened. Young Shigaraki, this is a guest of sensei. I would advise to refrain from provoking said guest or sensei. Maybe it was the barman's convincing tone or the mere mention of sensei, but Tamura reluctantly stood down, giving a "you're not even worth the trouble" comment, before he sat back in his chair, sending more glares towards the freak. Him just found it amusing. All of a sudden, the TV in the room was showing static and a deep voice was carried through it. Him knew it was showtime. Everyone was now on their toes, but they knew he was going to speak. Good evening, my dear guest. I trust the journey was not too much and that my protégé has made your stay comfortable. At that, an uncomfortable silence hung in the air before him started off the reply. Indeed, all for one, your student and I had a wonderful conversation, and let's just he made a killing attempt of a first impression. Punctuating his words with a cunning smirk. All for one was silent for a bit before he seemed to nod. I see. Well, do forgive my student, Tamura Shigaraki, for his lack of manners, but I assure you, he just doesn't like strangers. That being said, I would love to start this little discussion and hopefully it will benefit us towards our goals. They can't see it, but they could feel a shuddering smile from the TV. They were all gathered in certain room, possibly where they conduct their meetings. All for one was situated in the far end of the desk, without a word, till. Now that we are here, I would like to firstly introduce our guest. I never caught your name, but I was told to refer to you as him. At that, all four members turned their heads to view the creepy individual at the corner with his wide smile. With that, I would like to introduce my associates here, Dr. Daruma Ujiko, Kurogyri, Tamura Shigaraki. Our other associate is a bit away and will not join us, yet. But in due time. As he named them, him could easily make out their other member who he was referring to, that just brought more reason to smile. The meeting goes on with all for one explaining his organization and how it is designed to take down the hero society, that just intrigues him more as the idea of chaos grows more appealing. They soon find out what him is, or better yet, what him wants them to believe, citing that he was from a different world where people with powers are just few or non-existent. Him knew the man in the wheelchair was no fool and he had power, but him was the embodiment of tricks and mental games, so keeping the truth from this character would be an easy task, for now at least. Musing over the new information. I see. So tell me, those three girls that suddenly showed up and found themselves on the news, I take it they are from the same world you reside in? Carefully, all for one closely observed the being before himself, reading any signs of lies and withholdment of truth. So far him just confirmed his suspicions. Fascinating. Those girls' powers are quite unique to say the least. By any chance, do you anything about their powers and weaknesses? Giving his own smile, or at least it looked to be like that. Now there it was. The downfall of all man. Power. With that in mind, him went on the defensive. That is not something one just reveals on their first meeting, now do they? Him said rather smugly, seeing a slight shift of facial expression on the decrepit 200-year-old man across the table, before it changed just as fast as it came. Tamura could not stand for it anymore, slamming the table to rise up. Who are you to be so insolent? When sensei asks you a question you dash, but he was soon halted. Shigaraki, sit down. All for one ordered. Tamura was about to protest, but sensing his sensei's contempt, he promptly sat down. All for one turned his view back to the being across the desk and knew that he was no fool as well. Even if he did not know who or even what he is, he understood that it will be a beneficial deal to work with this him. Regaining his composure with a slight chuckle, he continued. I apologize for my protégé's outburst once again, kids these days. Trying to smooth out the once again tense atmosphere. Him took it with stride. Quite all right, I know a little something about disciplining those who step out of line. Glancing at the man, now shaking slightly with anger, scratching his neck and arms quite furiously, him found it all amusing. He then set his eyes back on the meeting. My dear fellow, those girls are I can call very special, and I don't usually say that to a lot of people. That being said, I could give you a little something, you can call it an ingredient of how they came about their powers. But before I do, I will need to see where this partnership goes and what do you have to offer me. Voice now turning serious, as was his smile. All for one grinned at that. Very well, I understand that those girls seem really special and secrets like these are not something to share to just about anyone. That being said, as I said, our goals are quite similar, being that I want to tear down the hero system and show its flaws while you want to have some fun and maybe return back to your world I believe. Now moving forward, we can work together but I believe you are a being who prefers to work alone, so let's call this a partnership of interest and help where we see fit, shall we? Him seemed to think over the idea, but he knew the answer already. Alright, all for one, I accept. As he said that, he extended his claw to shake the man. And as both limbs connected nothing happened, and yet something happened that night. Him seeing just the slightest hint of a disappointed twitch, even undetectable, just shot a friendly smile that even a blind man could tell case in point, all for one it was holding a knowing, mischievous agenda that would all come to light soon. Seems like plans will come together in no time between both parties. When all was said and done, him left as he came, in smoke. ChiWriter went over to his sensei in meantime and wanted to inquire his thoughts on the evening's events. Ah, ChiWriter. You're here to ask about the evening, is that right? He addressed the mist man. Walking across to his MSTR, he started. Sensei, may ask, do you trust that man enough for your plan? My friend, you should know that I keep my friends close and enemies closer. That said, I don't particularly trust that so-called man, but he has certain skills that may help me in my plans. He said very calculative. That being said, MSTR, when you shook his hands, what happened? The mist man asked suspiciously. All for one turned his chair to face his servant. The man had no quirk. In a deadpan expression. That sentence sent another eerie cloud over their heads. Who was this being and what could expect from these girls, much less, him? The girls' UA journey. For months him has kept a close eye on the girls when he can. He soon realizes that old habits die slowly as the girls have now planned on joining UA and on track to being deemed heroes, boring. Him could see that the girls have seemed to have forgotten little him. Well, I guess it is time to play. And the opportunity presented itself well, on a little road trip their school organized. It was the perfect place to enact a great show, and unveil the long-awaited reveal of him. The plan was for him to send his helpers to give the girls a little scare, but he did realize that even with their newly acquired powers, those girls are tougher than that. Almost entertaining almost. When the girls showed a glimpse of confusion then shock, it was time for him to do a little ventriloquism, and what better way than to do so in front of a captive audience. The Nomu that had been defeated stood up before everyone, leaving everyone shocked. Nomu. I knew you could not be defeated. From behind the hands, Tamura regained a malicious smirk. That moment of triumph died, a devilish laughter was heard. Ha 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 ha. No, you silly fool. A familiar effeminate voice echoed, leaving everyone who heard and knew stunned. What the you? Tamura said. What is going on? Todoroki questioned, confused. Buttercup, white as a sheet, froze when she heard that unmistakable voice. It's him. Hello, Buttercup. Surprised to see me? Oh well, months of no sign of my existence can really put one at ease, huh? His voice has a fake hurt tone, but you could honestly tell the difference. Anyway, I just want to let you know that this was fun seeing you fight my little toys and all, but like I always say, I will always be watching. An evil laugh that brought chills to everyone resounded. Everyone on the stairs could not understand what was going but did not like the zombie, Nomu. Ha 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 dash, the laughter died down when intense burning flames engulfed the monster. Him was still laughing even when he let go of the entity he possessed. It was a bittersweet victory, knowing that the girls will be shaken, but now, he will have to fight, and oh, he would just love to put those squirts in their place. At that, a mist portal opened in the middle of the bar and out came a seething Tamura marching over to him. "You son of a b! Who said you could play with gaming characters?" Like a child throwing a tantrum over his toys, he went on. A wide smile still remained. "My dear scratchy child dash. F you. I am not your child." He spat out in a growl. Him found that amusing, but still continued. "Point being that your MSTR and I agreed that I will carry out my part of the plan and you do yours. If you would have stayed, you would know that the stunt we did was the chain reaction that would play in everybody's favor." Tamura did not say anything, only glared. "Welcome to UA girls. This will be fun," a dark voice came out. With that, he vanished in red mist, leaving a certain small vial, labeled Chemical X. Ida had done his best to reach the staff, even as he was hurt and exhausted from his own battle. He managed to locate the nearest teacher and inform them about the current situation going on at the USJ. To say they were horrified was an understatement. As they contacted All Might to head out to the battle, seeing that he will get there faster to at least give them time to get there. The teachers were just praying that the students were not badly hurt. They already know that 13 was badly hurt, they only hoped that no other student was badly injured during the attack. As they entered through the gates, they saw what they found was startling to say the least. "Oh my, this is certainly unfavorable." Though Nizu said in calm exterior, all the teachers could tell the underlying danger in his tone. The air was abuzz, electromagnetic waves pulsed from the green energy field that surrounded a raven-haired teen. The said girl seemed as if she was not there, like her mind was racing, screams fueled by emotions. As energy exuded from her being, launching out and sending shockwaves into the earth, knocking down all those who were within shot, many were worried about this turn of events. People who were smart enough to see the growing severity of this turn, quickly backed away from the chaos that was about to unfold. Many students on the ground level who bore witness to it, all retreated, with a severely injured teacher draped over their arms. Tamura and Kurogiri watched as their plans did not pan out well and decided to make a tactical escape before anything else would happen. Especially after Tamura was shot in the leg. "Stop villains." Before Tamura headed within the portal, All Might shouted from a distance. Seeing them, he ordered for them to surrender. Tamura, giving one last look at the whole scene and the fact that his bioweapon did not get a chance to fight him, but rather is laying on the ground, completely brain damaged, makes his blood boil, and this time, the rage was not all on the symbol of peace. "You survived this day's symbol of peace. But don't think these wannabe super zeros can fight your battles for so long. I will kill you, mark my words, you will. And all who decided to play hero." Shooting murderous glares as he stepped into the portal that closed behind him. All Might was too busy to fully read into the villain's words at the moment, for another situation called for his attention. His eyes landed back onto one of the Kayamas who was floating in an energy field of her own creation, letting off pulse waves in all direction. Without thinking, All Might decided to get close enough to try and reason with her, bracing against the pulses. "Young Kayama. Whatever this is, you have to stop this and get a hold of your powers. You are out of cont dash." At that moment, a sphere of energy rose and without missing a beat, blasted a powerful beam of energy that All Might tried to defend but was sent flying through the air and crashing into the wall. Many people gasped at the turn of events. "Oh my, this will not do," Nizu said, directing his voice to his colleagues. "We have to keep her contained and try to find a way to reach her." "Cementos?" Looking at the cement-shaped man. He nodded as he jumped to the lower levels, and placing both hands on the ground, cement pillars erupted forth from the ground and heading towards their target, as they made reinforced walls to try and contain the problem. Looking up to his colleagues. "I have done my best to safely secure her, but her quirk is still trying to break through my walls." Nizu only nodded. "I see." Down the steps, the villains were making their way to try and attack the other students and hero teachers. Present Mike, seeing this, was not in the best of moods. Stepping forward, preparing his quirk, he gave a loud, "Yeeh." That knocked them off their feet. The students were relieved to know the teachers were here to rescue them. Snipe shot some bullets that flew out into another direction, hitting their marks. Ectoplasm created more copies of himself that helped guide and protect the students at the lower level to safety. While the teachers were busy evacuating the students, the makeshift cement dome was now broken and the pulse was getting stronger, causing a shatter to the windows and disturbance of the power. Things were getting too bleak as Midnight watched anxiously at the scene. What can we do? This seems so wild. We have to find a way to calm her down before she unleashes something much worse. Midnight was busy mulling over the ideas, that she almost didn't notice that someone had jumped onto the scene. Who is that? I don't know, but they are going to get hurt. Then Koda spoke up, alerting the teachers. It's Bubbles. At that Midnight and Nizu looked down to wonder what the girl was planning to do. The pulses were getting strong and much more violent, but it did not deter Bubbles' force field in the slightest. She stood a good distance away from her sister and her emotional breakdown from the looks of it. As if on autopilot, her eyes shone a blue glow that started to ignite a blue glowing aura around her whole body. Everyone was thinking that she was also going to do the same thing as Buttercup, but they couldn't be more wrong. Suddenly, when she opened her mouth, she gave a harmonious tune that spread blue sound waves around the area. The sound waves flowed around the other's energy field, encasing said field in its soothing effects. At that moment, the generated sound waves were having an effect on the raven-haired sister, calming her down, that the once vibrant and robust pulses are now almost gone. Everyone was amazed and or shocked at what they were witnessing before them. Buttercup was trying to resist the tune, but Bubbles wouldn't let up. Buttercup. It's okay, we're here. Calling out to her sister, trying to reach her. And after some time it worked. The chaotic pulsation ceased and Buttercup's consciousness was brought to normal. Buttercup looked as if confused. What happened? Slowly gaining her thoughts. No. She said, horrified. She was then surprised by gentle arms wrapped around her. Buttercup, you fine, I am glad you're okay. Almost like a whisper, but before Buttercup could reply, she found Bubbles unconscious. Trying to shake her awake, but then realizing she was just exhausted, she calmed down and held her in her arms as tiny traces of guilt rose up in her heart. So engrossed in her thoughts was she that she did not notice Midnight speed up to them, and gave a comforting embrace of her own as she whispered comforting words. Those were the only things she heard before she too fell unconscious. Nizu nodded in satisfaction that this mess was narrowly avoided. He turned to the remaining colleagues around and asked them to see to it that the police and ambulance are here, making sure to round up both students and remaining villains. They nodded and left. At that, All Might came forward, looking worse for wear. He turned his head. Yagi. How are you feeling? Nizu asked, concerned after he saw the attack done. They got away. All Might grit his teeth, his fists clenching at what he perceived as his own failure. Now's not the time for such worries. Nizu spoke up, but he knew he wasn't just talking about the villains as. The student's safety comes first and foremost. Secure them and subdue all of the villains left in the USJ. Move out. Sir. The pro-hero teachers chorused before making their way into the disaster zones. Present Mike and several ectoplasm clones surrounded Class 1A along with Cementos, who raised a wall that would protect the students from any villains with a long-range quirk. Aizawa is in rough shape, some students are unconscious, are any of you hurt? Present Mike questioned the students as he looked over the students and his fellow teacher. All Might, you're pushing yourself too far as it is, Nizu mentioned as he stood beside the number 1 hero. If you insist on staying, please watch over the students on their way out, I believe your presence will bring them some peace of mind. I never did anything, sir. I believe there is no need to be worried. All Might said, but still accepted to the principal's plan. We could not have anticipated this incident, Nizu hummed as the sounds of battle echoed throughout the various disaster zones. This kind of operation takes planning, not the common criminal type either. This has clearly been in the works for months, but your position as a teacher here was only announced at the beginning of the year. Something doesn't add up. The Chimera was already applying his hyper-intelligence to the mystery of the attack. In any case, from I gathered from the students, they say that some of the villains present knew. The girls mostly. I find that troubling to say the least, but we won't have much information for today, at least till the woke up. Nizu spoke calmly, trying to think through this whole mess. Quite shocking. Though All Might said it, his tone held no surprise in it. That is worrying, along with the villain leader's intense hatred for me. He was practically rabid with rage the moment he saw me. I know I've garnered my fair share of spiteful foes, but this seemed different. Almost like his hatred had been stewed and cultivated for years. A lifetime of anger towards me specifically, when he couldn't be more than 20 years old himself. Perhaps the child of someone that despises you? Nizu mused as he could tell the barely shift in the number one hero's tone, but still tried to see all the potential angles. Generational hatred? Maybe he was raised practically from BRTH to despise you and what you stand for. That's even more worrisome, sir. All Might exhaled heavily before he slapped his signature smile on and headed over to the group of students being led outside. Leaving Nizu's eyes to wonder on the girls being taken away by a concerned guardian. I sure hope the girls can shine some light on this disaster, for something tells me that a chain explosion has been set off. Outside the USJ Center. The students were gathered outside for roll call at the request of the police officer. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Everyone seems to be attended for. But out of the 19 that came today, 3 girls are currently unconscious and some of you are looking a bit worse for wear. The detective announced, looking towards the students. Many of the students were too busy and worried to stay put. After what had happened recently, they began discussing about the various battles they each had. Some were grateful that those villains were more of petty thugs and lower-level threats that they could easily handle. There were certain thoughts that others had about the whole crazy situation. Sue hopped her way over to the detective. "Sir, what about Mr. Aizawa and 13? She asked, quite worried. He looked at her with sympathetic eyes as he spoke. Mr. Aizawa has sustained multiple fractures on his arm, legs, and face skull, but fortunately there does not seem to be any serious brain damage. However, his orbital floor has broken into small pieces. We have no way of knowing if his eyesight will be impaired or not." At that, many people were startled by the dire news. "What about 13? Mine spoke up. 13 is in care at the same hospital. She sustained lacerations to the back and arm, but she is going to pull through in no time. And despite All Might not fighting, he sustained some injuries, but those can be easily treated at the UA medical ward at the moment." That made some sigh in relief at the news. "Dude, what about the other students, Blossom and her sisters?" Kirishima called out impatiently. "Yes, detective. Are Buttercup and her sisters all right?" Karo. Sue chimed in. Koda only shook his head vigorously, but others could tell his feelings on the matter. The detective just sighed, putting on a reassuring smile. "No need to worry too much. I have been informed that your classmates have been taken to the hospital as well. They sustained some minor scratches and injuries, but it is more the case of some severe exhaustion. Recovery girl will be one of the doctors to observe them overnight and see what needs to be done." That seemed to pacify a handful of them. At that, he informed his colleague to escort the students to school, so that they may be picked up by their parents, reasoning that they are not at the right state of mind to be asked questions, not right now at least. As they were round up, a certain green-haired boy was too wrapped up in his own mind to deal with the chatter of his fellow classmates, even as Uraraka and Ida were trying to get his attention and failing after some time. He looked down at his own hands and couldn't shake the thoughts that rang true like a bell. "I was so useless. A Deku." With that, he clenched them tightly all the way back to school and then home. Hospital infirmary. In the white walls of the hospital room, the trio seem to find themselves in a familiar setting they once were in, but this time, they are completely out of it. Midnight, being their guardian, accompanied the girls to the hospital. Even if Nizu didn't give her permission, she would have still insisted on going to at least make sure that they were safe. The memory of all of them so out of it, still fresh in her mind. When Ida told her and her colleagues about some sort of trouble at the USJ, she knew she had to act fast to help her students, and if she is being honest with herself, her foster kids. She has grown attached to them ever since the day she was saved by those 3 strong girls out of nowhere, and being a hero of honor, wanted to show her appreciation for an act of such bravery and selflessness in the face of danger. As she sat down on the chair next to one of the girls' bed, the door opened to reveal Recovery walking up to Midnight. "Easy, dear, before all your excessive worrying will land you in the hospital along with these kids," she commented with a small smile. Midnight returned the smile and nodded. "I understand what you are saying. I am just worried for them, that's all." She darted her eyes back to each individual's bed as their eyes were still closed. "Well, you shouldn't worry too much still. These kids are tougher than we give them credit for. They survived a villain attack and are still breathing, aren't they? Well, not for long once I get a hold of the green one. My stars, I can only imagine that she went overboard trying to save the others." Recovery, while admonishing, the tone of worry was still very much given off. Midnight gave a small smile at the elderly lady's attempts at amusement. She can only wait and see how it will go. Good night, girls. Get well soon. Faculty meeting room. One student who, despite his best efforts to escape, sustained mortal bruises riddled around his body. 3 students who seemed to have physical and mental exhaustion, one being that she had to brave a small storm of electromagnetic pulse wave while trying to calm the emotional breakdown of one of her siblings who was also in a critical battle, as most of the students could tell. Nizu read off the file that Recovery Girl had given him. All of the teachers present frowned heavily, a few with their heads bowed in self-disappointment. On top of 3 severely injured students, 2 of our faculty were also hospitalized from this incident. 13 is currently out with lacerations and will take a while to make a recovery. Aizawa had both arms broken, the skin on one elbow was entirely removed, and he also suffered a facial fracture. Nizu finished reading off. A room full of silence and self-recrimination was all that was left after the casualty report. This is unacceptable, as you can imagine. Nizu placed his hands together in front of his face as he looked at his teachers. I don't blame anyone here, or not here, for this incident. It is clear this was a plan executed after months of formulation and gathering of common thugs and low-level villains. The simple fact that it was able to happen and cause injury to our students and teachers is what is unacceptable. I think we can safely say the leader that I shot wasn't the real mastermind. Snipe spoke up, his face hidden by his mask as normal. That was a man-child through and through. I'd bet anything he couldn't have planned this by himself. If he tried. I have to agree. Present Mike was the next to speak up. Just from the brief interaction he had with All Might, it was clear he wasn't the type for long-term planning. It was almost as if he was an attack dog against All Might. That's true, Nizu nodded in agreement to present mixed thoughts. All Might and I have already considered the potential of this being a case of generational hatred. This Shigaraki Tomura may very well have been raised to hate and despise All Might along with everything he's done and stands for. There's no reasoning with someone like that. Hound Dog rumbled from his spot at the large table. That's a type of indoctrination that isn't able to be broken. This Shigaraki villain would most likely consider losing his own life acceptable if it meant taking All Might down with him. That makes him even more dangerous than a normal villain that's just trying to make a name for themselves. Present Mike exhaled heavily, pinching the bridge of his nose. He's the type that'll happily draw in innocent civilians to get his way. Hostages, large-scale attacks, threats, we could be seeing any or all of these the next time he shows his face. That is true, we're already releasing both his face and name, along with the Warpgate user Kurojiris, to the public through the police departments. Nizu informed the group of pros. The next unsettling news is both the other voice that was made known at the battle and preliminary results we got from the bioweapon that they had with them. None of the teachers missed the thin form of All Might tightly clenching a fist as he stared at the report in front of him. The bioweapon, Nomu as they call it, is made from the body of a missing person. It was heavily altered through various surgeries and procedures, including genetic modification that added the DNA of at least 3 other people to the body. This is how it came to possess multiple quirks. It couldn't be called human anymore after what was done to it. It's more like a corpse that's being moved by residual memories and orders. Somewhat like a biological robot for lack of a better term. Nizu went over the information from the report. That's twisted, Power Loader grimaced as he looked over the papers. What kind of monster could do this? Only someone with medical training, decades of experience, and years of experimentation with both genetics and quirks. Recovery Girl looked nearly apoplectic as she read over the file. The elderly hero's hands were shaking with barely contained rage. This report hit closer to home for her considering her background in the medical field. It is as Recovery Girl has said, Nizu nodded to the angry, elderly hero. On that front, I and a few other investigative heroes are already looking into every doctor in Japan that fits these parameters. We hope to have it narrowed down in short order. If none of them turn out to be the one responsible, what then? All Might asked the hyper-intelligent chimera. Then we involve the international police and heroes from other countries. Nizu locked eyes with the number 1 hero. If we have to make this a worldwide manhunt to see justice be carried out, then that is what we'll do. All Might looked like he was about to say something, but then stopped and nodded in agreement. And the unknown being that possessed the Nomu? Midnight questioned the principal curiously. Yes, well, according to the students who were up close to the events. It appears that they could not tell what was happening, only that an unnerving voice spoke from the bio-weapon. Giving a serious demeanor. Could we have reason to believe that whoever that voice may be, he is working with Tamura Shigaraki? Present Mike asked. It would be safe to assume, as Tamura did seem to have been shocked, but he nevertheless knew who was it, and that being said, their quirk could be dangerous if nothing else. Nizu had already a sinking feeling of who they may be, about that for later, but it will be left to PPGs to reassure his findings when they awoke. Hopefully he is mistaken, most likely not. They all nodded, even with the still hanging lingering unease in the air. Only when Midnight piped up with an icebreaker. Are we continuing on with the sports festival, sir? Midnight questioned, hoping to ease even her own tension. Yes, we must show that we have not been discouraged, weakened, or made fearful by this attack. So long as the students of Class 1A are deemed mentally fit and not suffering from any form of trauma after a visit with Hound Dog, they will be allowed to participate. If not, then we will have the sports festival without them. Nizu informed the staff as a whole while giving a look to the counselor. Of course, Principal. Hound Dog gave a short nod to Nizu. This was a large part of his job at UA after all. He was there to give support to the students and catch early signs of psychological trauma developing during their time at UA High. His normal meetings were usually with the second and third years, the students that had gone on to internships and seen the industry firsthand. It was always possible that one of their students would see something in the field that would shake them mentally. Hound Dog was a certified trauma counselor, he knew how to help, and it was why he was at UA to begin with. He wanted to help the next generation be prepared for the reality of hero life. Moving on from that, Vlad. The homeroom teacher of Class 1B gave his undivided attention to Nizu. I leave it to you to explain what happened at the USJ to your class. Please inform them to be respectful and courteous to Class 1A when they return on Monday. Class 1B's rescue training will be postponed to next week. We'll be giving the entire USJ facility a new security system and overhauling the physical defenses as well. This will not happen again. Yes sir, I'll be sure to inform them. Vlad gave a firm nod to Nizu. Should I inform them that injuries were suffered, sir? I want to believe my students would understand that this was a serious incident. But teenagers can have odd perceptions of such events. Do what you must to impart that this isn't something to joke about. Students and teachers were harmed and lives were at stake. I expect all students to take this matter seriously, regardless of what course they're in. Nizu's face was completely serious, none of the usual carefree attitude that he showed the students was anywhere to be seen. Of course, sir. Vlad nodded as he wrote something down on the paper in front of him. At the hospital. Late in the night, Buttercup had awoken from her deep slumber. She was initially confused at her surroundings until images of what had happened before back to her and she was no longer feeling fear but anger at the new piece of information. Welp, I guess that's somewhat answers about where those gangrene goofs came from. Quickly looking around, she notices that her sisters are also here and they look to be out too. She went over to them and placing her hands on them, gave some energy which their bodies accepted. At least they are fine. We'll have to wake up these babies later on. But as for now, she trailed off as she set off for a little mission of her own. Late in the night where everyone was either asleep or working, she took to the scene and walked around the hallways. Careful not to cause any noise or bring attention to herself. Strolling along the hallway, she made a stop beside another patient's room. Inside rests a man covered in bandages from head to toe, whose injuries could be understatedly described as severe. Here to help, dearie. She was just strolling in to enter when a familiar voice took her by surprise and she whipped around, hands glowing at the ready to blast the person. Behind the curtain was Recovery Girl who with no fear, stared at Buttercup with a deadpan expression. Honestly, I am glad you are back on your feet, but do you mind putting that glow away before you hurt someone and I will be neck deep in more work. Stepping down from her chair, she walked off the patient on the other side of the room. Buttercup remained at ease but was still skeptical at the situation. Anyway, mind telling me why you came all the way to this side of the hospital, at night? Raising an eyebrow at the girl as she browsed through the patient's documents. Mind explaining why you are here? Buttercup, in an attempt to avoid the question, asked her own. To which Recovery Girl just rolled her eyes at. I guess the school didn't hold classes on teaching the obvious, now did they? That made Buttercup narrow her eyes, making the elderly doctor chuckle. Anyway, little lady, I was looking after you, your sisters and 2 of the UA teachers who found themselves in this place. So if you are here to kill this big bag of depression and SDSM, I would recommend after he recovers and he is out of my hands. Obviously Recovery Girl was joking, but there are some people who would take her up on the offer. Buttercup was pretending to think it over, but shook her head with a smirk. That brought out another chuckle from the youthful hero. Regaining her composure, she addressed the girl. Now, I know you are here to heal this coffee-addicted bag of gloom as well as 13, but I must ask if you are strong enough to do so, whippersnapper. Cocking her eyebrow, as she questioned her. Buttercup just rolled her eyes and walked up to the injured party. No sweat, Granny. I am more than okay to take care of this. That, although a bit snarky, was the answer she hoped for. As Buttercup took a deep breath to center her being. In all honesty, her powers are still a little high at the moment, but she knew she had to stay calm and not go all hyper again, no matter how tempting the energy felt. She made her way between the 2 beds and held both hands over them. She tapped into her powers, with a glow of her eyes. She emitted a yellow-green glow from her palms and released the same color beams that enveloped the 2 unconscious heroes' bodies. As she did so, she could sense the deep damage that was left on the individuals and made the effort to open up the reservoir. She had never needed to use a heightened amount of solar healing energy before, but that's not to say that it was hard, but rather just tempting to lose control, especially after days back. As the glow begun to get stronger, so was her tired spell. But before anything happened, she stopped by a cane to her arms. Ow! Why I oughta, but the same cane came inches to her face. You won't do anything of the sort as of now, little missy. I may be old, but my senses are sharper than ever to know that you need rest. Now, go. She said this, all the while she was shoving the raven-haired girl out the room, much to her confusion, anger and protests. After the door was closed, Recovery Girl shook her head as she turned to look at the underground hero. You could have said thank you, you know. Recovery Girl lightly admonished the man. It will come up once I get back to school. As of now, she and her sisters have a lot to deal with. Aizawa spoke up from behind his bandages. You still haven't given me the update on that, by the way. You'll get your report after I unbandage your face and right arm. Recovery Girl huffed at the workaholic. Honestly, maybe I should have encouraged her to give you a beating instead. At the rate her attitude is going, that may happen. Aizawa replied while the elderly hero started removing the bandages around his eyes and head. You're such a workaholic, Eraser. And just be grateful that student of yours deemed it fit, or even bothered to help your situation. You might not be considerate of her and her sisters being heroes, but by all that is plus ultra, they have hearts of gold. Recovery Girl shook her head. Seeing that you're nearly healed, I didn't want to overexert herself. We'll work on your left arm over the next few days. Nizu will catch you up to speed in his office once I'm done. That's fine. Aizawa agreed as he sat up so that his right arm could be freed from the, now unnecessary, bandages. But he gave some thought about what the elderly doctor said, quite harshly. The next morning was a better time. As all the girls woke up, seemingly better than before, the doctors were called in to review them, and then midnight came in like a hurricane accompanied by Nizu and brought all girls into a big, bone-crushing hug that would have landed them into the hospital again. Oh girls, I am so happy you are awake and fine. How are you feeling? Midnight asked. There was a silence that hung in the air until Nizu spoke up. I see you are all worried about that particular voice. Do you care to explain? It took a few moments, but they talked. They all told them about how the Gangrene Gang were surprisingly there, and it was a shock to deal with after years have passed. It is revealed that they disappeared some time ago, and the girls had thought that they left Townsville and disbanded, but that was foolish thinking. Buttercup piped up by revealing that when she heard him's voice, she was frightened by the prospects of him being here, hoping it was not true, losing her cool and almost hurting so many people. She looked so guilt-ridden by it all that her sisters couldn't help but comfort her. It's okay, Buttercup. We all felt caught off guard by that surprise attack. We can never truly predict what him plans to do. With that, Blossom pulled Buttercup for a side hug, patting her back. I am just glad that Bubs was able to calm me down. She turned her head to face her sister, who was sitting on the bed. You're hardcore, Bubs. Thanks for speaking some senses into me. Bubbles just sent a small smile back. Though she looked down. Well, I had to help, you're my sister and I didn't want to feel helpless. The two adults as well as the sisters were confused at that statement. Midnight came closer to her, sitting beside her. Sweetie, you were not useless. Some of the students said that you acted confidently in your battle, as well as helped Ida escape and get us. You wonderfully. She said all that while bringing her close in for a hug that really brightened her mood. Blossom saw this and thought she was wrong because it was her who felt useless at that time, but she didn't need to drag that out now. But right now, we just have to dust ourselves off and be prepared for whatever him has in store for all of us. Right now, we can say that the Gangrene Gang might be working for him, and that can also mean he might be working with the Mist Man and Hands for Face. But it doesn't seem like him could come up with this whole scene. She said out loud to herself, pondering the situation. That was Nizu piped up. I agree with you, Blossom. But such things are better saved for later conversations. I believe the answers will reveal themselves soon enough, but for now, we just have to be prepared for it. He gave a smile to all of them as they agreed. The girls were free to go after a day, and they were so happy to hear that. The next school day. For some time now media outlets were on fire with the breaking news that there had been a villain attack on the USJ. Shigaraki Tamura and Kurojiiri both had their names and faces plastered over nearly every screen in the country. The League of Villains was now a known group, and heroes all over the country, but especially around the Muzutafu area, were on the lookout for any suspicious activity among low-level villains. While the country reacted to the news, several of said students were trying to go about their school days as if remotely normal. They were all informed to attend mandatory counseling sessions held by Hound Dog. They were told to do a psych evaluation if they are to participate in any upcoming school activities. That also included the girls, no matter how much they argued. They headed back to school after a good recovery which just included rest. They were nervous, mostly Buttercup, although she did very well not to show it. The fact that she went overboard might make them fear her and her sisters more. Great way to make friends, huh? When they soon entered the classroom, not even 5 minutes passed did some of the classmates stood up to greet them and see how they were doing. Hey, it's Blossom, Buttercup and Bubbles. Sue and Izuku came forward to see them. Hello Buttercup. I hope you are doing much better. Karo. Sue asked with her normal expression. I wanted to say thank you for saving us back there. We were worried for you but we couldn't find a way to visit. That caught Buttercup off guard but recovered to give a small smirk. It's fine Sue. My sisters and our good thanks. No problem. Karo. Sue said. Izuku was just nodding along but didn't say much else, which Buttercup noticed but said nothing. With Koda surprising most people, walking over to give Bubbles a hug, which she returned wholeheartedly. Thanks Koda, I missed you too. Giving the shy friendly giant a reassuring smile. Blossom was shocked to see Kirishima before her. Hey dudes. How you feeling? You sort of gave us a scare back there. Kirishima may have phrased it to seem like he was asking the three of them but not from where he's standing. Standing across from Blossom, directing a toothy grin at her. Blossom smiled at him. I remembered you carried me all the way back to the others, thanks. And thanks for helping me back there. I appreciate it. Kirishima was taken aback at her works but brought back his toothy grin. It's no sweat. I still consider you my partner, even if we weren't on the same team. Besides it was the right thing to do. Saying that, made Blossom that much more glad. So, when it was time for class to start, the girls sat in their desks up front, perky and eager. Take your seats, homeroom is about to start. Aizawa stated as he opened the door and entered the classroom. The teens quickly got to their seats and noticed that their teacher didn't look bad at all for having been so severely injured the last time they'd seen him. Having only his left arm splinted and in a sling was a far cry from what any of them expected, barring Izuku. Most of them had been wondering who'd take over for Aizawa while he recovered. Sir, you look. OMG your face is not that bandaged. That's great. The girls more so Blossom and Bubble, looked around, confused at the confusion before realizing something. They were told about the damages that the two teachers sustained in battle and from the sounds off it, it should have been worse but this is nothing. Aizawa quieted the murmurs with a simple raise of his hand. That's when Ida took his chance. Mr. Aizawa, I'd like to congratulate you on your quick recovery. Ida raised his hand as he spoke from his seat. Thank you. Aizawa nodded slightly as he stood behind the podium. You can thank Kayama for my mostly recovered state. Her and Recovery Girl both used their quirks to treat me. Thank you, Ms. Buttercup. That caught not only Buttercup but as well some of her classmates off guard, but still took the compliment. You're welcome, sir. She gave a flick of her hands as if saying it was no big deal, but he knew how big of a deal it was. All in due time. As much as I know you guys would love to ask about my face, Aizawa sighed, clearly over it even before he started talking, that will be none of your concern. My injuries are irrelevant, and there are more imperative topics to go over. Understood? The class was quiet before saying in unison, understood. Good. Now, to the important matter. I would like to tell you that UA's annual sports festival is coming up very soon. At this, the class went into an excited uproar. Walt Sports Festival. No way. It's here. Right now. Once again, though, the girls were completely perplexed. Sports Festival. What the hell is that? Buttercup asked, clueless. Is this some sort of school activity? Bubbles sighed. Soon, the clamor quieted down, allowing Aizawa to explain. For those of you who do not know what that is, the UA Sports Festival is an annual event held by UA High School, where students from all grades and courses have the opportunity to showcase their abilities in different competitions. All students at UA are eligible to participate, as it is a great way to be scouted by pro-hero agencies looking for interns. Bubbles tilted her head. Hero agencies? But Blossom looked ecstatic. Hero agencies. I know those. Those are companies that pro-heroes run. Huh? Buttercup asked, completely bemused. I thought that pro-heroes were heroes. Not business entrepreneurs. Blossom rolled her eyes. Not those kinds of companies. In this world, hero agencies are owned by heroes and run by hires called sidekicks. They don't sell anything, they're just a group of heroes available to call on. They specialize in one of, or all, 3 saving categories: rescue, evacuation, and battle. Whenever a job needs a hero, police will contact agencies in that area, so that a hero can come and help. It's how the business works. Buttercup and Bubbles stared at their sister, dumbfounded. We really need to get you off the computer, Buttercup sighed. After that, they focused back on Aizawa's talk with the class. And, Ida had just raised his hand with a question, which he almost always does. Yes, Ida. Aizawa asked. I just wanted to know, sir. Ida replied, doing his stiff hand motions, isn't it too soon for a sports festival? The USJ attack had just happened, and with the sports festival in the coming weeks, it seems like a lot. Couldn't we reschedule? I mean, couldn't they attack again when even more people are packed into one place? Zero asked, and a few students looked questioningly towards Aizawa. At that, the class murmured, with a few others voicing their worries. Ida had a smart point. It did seem like too much, especially since the sports festival sounded huge. I do acknowledge all of your concern, truly. Aizawa answered, but, to answer your questions, the administration thinks this is a good way to show that the threat has been handled. That our school is safer than ever. Aizawa spoke calmly, in the tone of a professional reading off the decision of their higher-ups. We're also increasing security compared to past years. This event is a huge opportunity for all students at UA. It's not something we can cancel because of a villain attack. It's true that getting scouted and joining a famous hero agency can get you more experience and even popularity. Aizawa admitted to the class of teens. That's why this festival matters. If you want to go pro one day, this event can open up doors for you. You get 1 chance a year, 3 chances in a lifetime. No aspiring hero can afford to miss this festival. Which means you can't slack off in your lessons or training. Am I clear? Yes, sir. The class chorused. The class looked a mixture of excited and nervous, as a new tone of anticipation hung heavy in the air. The girls especially looked nervous. For the thought of the attention was sending mixed thoughts in their heads. Aizawa continued. Now, as you have been informed, you must all attend a therapy session with Hound Dog. This will be mandatory to assess your well-being. If you are to attend the festival. If you refuse to go to your meeting this afternoon, you'll be barred from the festival. If you lie, and Hound Dog will know if you do, you'll also be banned from the festival. Not everyone was keen on the idea, while some groaned to themselves, some were a bit more colorful in their DLVRY. That's BS. Why am I lumped up with these sissies, when I was unfairly taken out from that trip? Bakugou barked as he shot to his feet. The class was initially shocked to have the walking firecracker back so early, while some were, others were obviously happy for him while others groaned. His parents pulled some strings and made a big fuss about their son was seriously injured during a class lesson and he was the true victim in the end. Imagine that. I wonder where exactly he had gotten that attitude from. Sit down, Bakugou. You may have gotten yourself back into this class early, but I won't tolerate your nonsense while I am giving announcements. Aizawa's hair rose as his eyes glowed a bright red. His glare would make any thug or low-level villain obey. Bakugou tried to withstand the look through sheer stubbornness, but he also knew Aizawa could simply deny him the ability to compete in the festival. With a huff, Bakugou sat down stiffly in his chair with a scowl on his face. "Sorry, sir." Bakugou apologized grudgingly with a small bow from his seated position. Aizawa gave him another moment of his glare before deactivating his quirk and nodding to the ash blonde. After some back and forth with Aizawa and the class discussing about the sports festival and moving on to lessons, the class broke for lunch and everyone was talking about the whole thing with different levels of emotions. I am so pumped right now. Kirishima's excitement was palpable. We do great out there and we're on our way to becoming heroes. Shiro remarked, walking over to his classmates. We get so few chances, we have to make the most of this. Tokoyami coolly said. Yahoo! I am so pumped for the prospects of showing my stuff, Mina. Hagakure excitedly said, bouncing on her toes. Yeah girl, it will be the perfect time to show the pro heroes what we're made of. Mina matching her energy. Most people were taken out of their momentary high to see a disturbing side to Uraraka showing, as she spoke to her group. Deku. Ida. Let's do our best in this sports festival. Saying that with a look of someone on the edge. She turned to her entire classmates and gave the same declaration of war. Everyone, I'm gonna do my best. Some took the determination as great while others were uncomfortable to say the least. Izuku being on the middle, just sweat dropped at his friend's enthusiastic behavior. At the corner, the girls could say the same about her behavior, plus other more appropriate words. Wow, she's acting crazier than Buttercup when she plays a sport. Bubbles turning her head back to face her sisters, as she made that remark. Buttercup rolled her eyes at that. Whatever Bubs. Her energy is something I can get behind her on for once. Saying that with a shrug. Blossom was busy contemplating about something, till Bubbles pulled her out of her thoughts. Blossom, are you okay? You're awfully quiet at the moment. See her sister's concern, she came at ease. Oh, it's nothing, Bubbles. It's just that, this sports festival is a big deal and it will be a time to showcase our powers and be seen by everyone, not just pros by people. She said with a serious expression. Buttercup only gave her a cocked eyebrow. Yeah, Red, that's the whole point of this games. To drive our rivals into the dust and show them how awesome we are. She said, oblivious to her sister's point. Blossom groaned at her reply. No, Butter Bronze. I am saying that we will watched by everyone, including him. Whispering the last part, but that made her sisters go quiet, which left her to continue. We also needed to be careful to not overdo it, and draw unnecessary attention to ourselves. After the USJ events, some of our classmates are not particularly very open with us. Like most of them were ever in the first place. Bubbles sighed at the true words. Whatever. Buttercup groaned, but saw the severity to her older sister's concern, she just doesn't like it. Let's go and grab lunch already. As they left to leave the classroom, a certain green-haired boy was staring while thinking too hard at one of them. Deku. That brought the green-haired boy back to earth. Oh yeah, sorry what? He asked confused. We were just about to head out for lunch. Aren't you coming? Raising an eyebrow at the boy, Ida inquired from the doorway. Oh, right, coming. Walking quickly to catch up to his friends. As the trio were walking and talking. They stopped around a corner. Izuku and Ida found out about Uraraka's reasons for being a hero, and although could be cited as superficial and greedy, they saw it as another honorable reason for being a hero. Izuku was in deep admiration for her grounded reasons until a booming laugh echoed around the halls. Young Midoriya is here. They turned, find All Might popping out from around the corner. Whoa, All Might, what brings you here? Izuku asked, bewildered. Lunch, want to join me? All Might inquired while raising a small lunchbox. The next thing they knew, they were in All Might's office having tea and a conversation. "You're saying that your limit is 50 minutes? Izuku asked as he took the tea offered to him by his mentor. "Yeah. That's how long I can use my powers now. I overdid it too many times but I didn't realize that it caught up to this." He took his tea as well but for a split second was in thought. "I didn't do anything rigorous, I didn't even fight in the USJ battle, but it's still something changed after it. Strange." He returned his attention back to the boy in front of him. "Anyways, I can barely even look like All Might for an hour and a half," he said in a serious tone. Izuku looked guilt-ridden. Before he could say anything, All Might beat him to it. "Do not waste the need to apologize, young Midoriya. I knew what this would entail, so it's fine." Saying that to reassure the boy. He then went down to business. "But that's beside the point. I brought you here to talk to you about the sports festival and what it entails. The problem is that even after all this time, you still can't regulate one for all, can you?" "Oh, I did once. When I landed that hit on the Nomu at the USJ attack, there was no backlash or pain from the quirk," Izuku said as he recalled the events that happened a few days back. He also couldn't help but remember a certain classmate of his, risking her life and being just amazing. All Might was a little surprised by the unexpected progress, however little it may be. "Oh, you did tell me about that. Pardon me." He stood up from his sit and went towards the window. "Anyway, that may be progress but it is still not enough. Frankly, I don't have much time left as the symbol of peace." Looking seriously out to the horizon, while a saddened Izuku whispers a "no way" under his voice. And some of those with built-up villainous intent are starting to realize, someone needs to step up and keep the peace soon. That made Izuku stand up at that declaration. All Might whips himself around to face Izuku, seriousness in his tone as he spoke. "I gave you my power for one reason. Because you will be the hero that succeeds me and takes my place as the symbol of peace." Izuku doesn't know why, but those words do not sit well with him. "Do you still want to become a hero? Do you still feel as strongly as you once did long back?" Izuku pushes whatever feelings he had at the moment aside and focus on this question. He knew the answer to. Yes. Not an ounce of lack of determination. All Might looks him straight in the eye. "Very well. The time has come for you to show that." The feelings rise again, causing Izuku to give a low gasp. This sports festival is something pro-heroes no, the entire country will be watching closely. The boy goes wide-eyed. "I want you to think of this as your debut. You are the fledgling symbol of peace. The next All Might. Izuku Midoriya, I want you to present yourself in front of the whole world and go, 'I am here.'" That left the boy to feel like a mountain of weight was placed on top of his shoulders. "What? You seriously healed Aizawa and 13? Bubbles exclaimed. Which was promptly followed by a smack over the head by Buttercup sitting next to her. "Sheesh Bubbles, how about you just paint a sign over my head, for the world to know?" Buttercup muttered angrily as her younger sister gave a quick, "Ow, sorry," and covered her mouth. "Honestly Bubbles." She sighed. "Anyway Buttercup, while I am glad you took the initiative to help someone out, it was still risky to put yourself in danger like that." Blossom addressed her sister while eating her rice. Buttercup rolled her eyes. "Honestly, Captain Worrywart, it was no problem. Besides, it was only Recovery Girl there who was awake, while the others were passed out. Not like any danger there." She shrugged as she happily ate her katsudon. Blossom didn't buy that one bit but chose to let it slide, hoping for a calmer end of school day. She was sadly wrong. And it didn't help matters when the bell rang and class let out for the end of the day. Because as soon as the door opened, the doorway was nearly flooded with students from other classes. "Why the heck are you all here?" Uraraka exclaimed as stood by the door, shocked at the scene. "Eek! There's so many people. Bubbles squeaked, making Blossom and Buttercup jump at that. Do you students have some sort of business with our class? Explain your motives. Ida said that with a raised chop. Much like Blossom and Buttercup, the class was equally shocked and spooked. But, the other students didn't seem to care, still swarming the door and staring at them. What are they doing? Blossom asked, mostly to herself. Surprisingly, out of all of the people, Bakugou answered. Isn't it obvious, idiots? He snapped, glaring at the nearby students. They came here to scope out the competition. And who better to check out than the famous class who fought villains? If Blossom was planning on saying anything about that, Bakugou clearly didn't care to listen as he pushed to the front of the Class 1A crowd, and shouted at the students gathered around. If none of you back away right now, I will make sure you get an explosion in your face. He screamed at them, which made some of Class 1A panic at Bakugou's rude remark. This, shockingly, did nothing to scare the students away. If anything, they seemed to be growing bolder, as looks of skepticism and dubiousness crossed most people's faces. Which was weird considering that a simple scowl from Bakugou would send them running, let alone a whole yelling threat. So this is the famed Class 1A? One student asked, raising an eyebrow before chuckling. I have to say I'm a bit underwhelmed. Bakugou growled. Know your place, loser. Be as underwhelmed as you want, but remember that I'm the one with better skills. Are you? Another student remarked, only the remark sounded more like mockery. Well, pardon us for thinking that any of us lowlives could compare. But wait, you weren't anywhere near the attack, were you? So you can't claim any better skills as your Class 1A posers, can you? That warranted a lot of snickers and murmurs from the crowd. It made Bakugou seethe more in anger. Anyways, the teachers announced that anyone that does well in the sports festival can be transferred to the hero department if they prove so. And, unfortunately for you, with the better skills, the opposite can happen to you. The guy stepped forward, prompting some other students to move out of the way so that he faced the entirety of Class 1A. He had purple hair, eye bags that told others he barely sleeps, and an unamused expression. So, Class 1A, that glorious fame you have isn't here to stay. Consider my warnings as a declaration of war. Class 1A looked clearly shocked at this, and so did the girls. War's a very strong word, buddy. Sure you want to use it? Buttercup mumbled. I guess we're not the only ones taking this seriously, Kirishima mused. But the crowd wasn't done yet, as another boy who with weird markings around his eyes, sharp teeth and gray hair, stepped up too, his eyes flashing with barely contained anger. I'm Tetsu, from Class 1B next door to you. And I came to tell you all that don't you dare take these warnings lightly. We've seen how you act, and we've seen your arrogance. I can only pray that you all don't embarrass us and tarnish UA's image. The class was shocked at the clear hate given off by classes that they barely knew. They weren't done though, when another student, young woman of an average build with dark hair. She has ear-length bangs are arched slightly up before they come down, which is styled into a set of low, curved pigtails. She has thin, stern-looking eyes with notable lower eyelashes, and usually wears a sullen expression. She saw the shy lug and scoffed, walking over to him. Like seriously, what were the teachers thinking when they placed this scaredy cat in 1A hero course? I mean, if this is what counts as heroes, then there must be something wrong with the system here. Many people were shocked at the blatant rude comments that the girl said to Koda, who was brought to shakes and lowered his head in embarrassment, something a certain blonde heroine did not find very nice. What was that? Bubbles walked over to the scene with a fire in her step, as she stood before the individual. What did you say to my friend? She spoke in a cold voice. Hear that, everyone? The big giant has a little girl protecting him. The same student laughed at the girl. This made people laugh even harder. Bubbles slowly glared with a slight scowl. Look here, princess, that made Bubbles' sisters almost went all Powerpuff on her peach. You and your sisters might feel pretty big or lucky to face a villain attack, but one takedown does not make you all better than us. Your little stunt months back does not count too, for you must have just been looking for the limelight like all you 1A hero wannabes here. We're all here to win, not make friends, so how about you just step down? After hearing the infuriating speech, Buttercup was ready to whoop her peach till tomorrow and Blossom was barely holding her anger. The rest of Class 1A were clearly taken aback by such venom and wanted to say something, but Bubbles beat them to the punch. Having heard enough, she grabbed on the girl's collar and lifted her up a few inches off the floor. Alright, B. Listen here and listen well. Bubbles' eyes shone a glowing blue that further scared the now terrified girl. I don't care that rolled off the wrong side of the bed this morning. But I don't like when jerks make fun of my sisters or friends. If you really want to show us what you got, then bring it at the sports festival and let us show you what this wannabe hero class can really when we crush your dreams of winning the competition. With that, Bubbles finally let go, leaving the girl momentarily frozen in fear. Her glare and glowing blue eyes turned back to a bright smile and normal non-glowing eyes, although if you looked closely, a small smirk would have been noticed. She took Koda's hand and left the classroom, leaving everyone in Class 1A impressed or slightly weary. Buttercup and Blossom quickly follow suit, not before Blossom addressed the still present crowd. As Class 1A representative, I advise you all to leave our class this instant, before I inform the teachers about this declaration of war you all made. She said calmly, but her icy tone, flowing hair and growing cold glare said anything but calm. The girl from before returned to her previous state of anger, and turning on her heels to quickly walk away. This prompted some of the crowd to disperse with reproachful glares at the class. I never knew that Bubbles girl could give as well as she can get. Mina said rather surprised. Yeah, it made me kind nervous to be around her. Hagakure said, shaking. Man, that was so manly of her to stick for Koda and her sisters. Kirishima exclaimed, releasing a single tear from his eye at the sheer manliness. Not surprising. She did also stand up for our class. Karo. Tsu said in her normal fashion. But seriously, now we have a bigger target on our backs for that. Those guys are gunning for us now. Kaminari exclaimed in fear. What are you losers whining about? Bakugou snapped at his class. They already decided to target our class the moment they came over here. I for one am not going to let those extras get even an inch. The only thing that is important is that I beat them. With that, he left. Everyone was crossed between being inspired by Bakugou's words or mad at the attitude that led to this. Most people took the former shockingly. Uraraka paused for a while and nodded at that. He's right. We saw that they were gunning for us, this just makes it easier to see it clearly. So I am with Bakugou on not giving them an inch of doing so. She declared to her classmates, who all cheered in agreement. Izuku was in thought. He had an idea, a good one, still left up in the air. But he knew that they would be the right people to help. So he set off to ask. Buttercup turned to her sister, pride in her eyes. Bubbles, that was freaking awesome, what you did there. When they were far enough from the crowd, the girls and Koda took a moment to sit down after the whole unnecessary drama. Bubbles was just silently listening to the whole thing while holding Koda's hand, who needed much comforting, started to relax. But they all could clearly see the held-back tears that Bubbles was trying to prevent from falling. Blossom noticed this right away. Bubbles, what's wrong? Approaching the topic with care. She shook her head. It's nothing, girls. But they knew it wasn't nothing. Buttercup didn't buy it for a second. Alright sister, out with it. Spill. As tactless as Buttercup's form of persuasion was, it was still effective in getting the information out of her. Bubbles sighed. Well, it's just that the whole thing was so nuts. I mean, yeah, we are competing to be heroes, but the way the other classes were acting, as if we chose to have those villains attack us that day. That got a touch of anger out of her. It makes me mad and sad that people can be so self-absorbed in their own pursuits that it clouds their thinking about somebody else. I didn't like how she made us out to be. And yes, I know it is not true, but after all we have been through, it sucks. At that, a few tears fell down her cheeks. Koda wordlessly pulled her in for a side hug while it happened. Blossom and Buttercup were a little floored by this whole scene. Maybe counseling was not a bad idea by the school after all. Blossom cleared her throat, and sat down next to her sad sister to address her. Bubbles, I get it, I'm sorry. I didn't realize how much this has all been on you. I want to first off say, as Buttercup said, that was freaking awesome, what you did there, not just for us or Koda but for yourself. She sent a tender smile that was reciprocated. I am proud of what you did just now, and I will be even more proud when we show them you meant every word when we head to the sports festival and win. There was shimmer of mischief in the red-haired girl's eyes that no one missed. The Bubbles whipped her head at that. Really, Blossom? Yeah, Red. Buttercup crossed her arms as she cocked her eyebrow. Weren't you the one who was against showing off to the world, on account of the villains and him? They didn't really mind Koda hearing this. It was pretty vague, and the big lug was not one to pry into other people's business, to the girl's knowledge at least. She took another breath and addressed them at once. I know what I said, Buttercup, and although I still believe we should not go overboard, I do say, we shouldn't allow the possibility of what-ifs to stop us from showing the world that the Powerpuff Girls are not some hero wannabes, but are true heroes. Right, girls? She looked at them with that same determined look they all knew and loved. Wiping away the tears, she gave her sisters a determined face. Yeah. Oh hell yeah. Fist pumping in the air. We are so going to whoop some a dash. Izuku. Blossom blurted out of nowhere, and Buttercup thought she was making a ridiculous way to stop her words, till she heard footsteps stop right behind her. Izuku was standing behind them with an embarrassed smile, looking to want to talk. They were briefly silent by this action till Blossom addressed it. Hey Izuku. What brings you here? She gave a polite smile to ease his discomfort. It did, before he went on to talk. Oh, sorry to intrude on your conversation. I just wanted to apologize to you guys on what that girl said over there and see if you were okay. He awkwardly said, trying his best not to strain eye contact. The girls just looked at each other before Bubbles happily spoke up. Izuku, silly. You don't have to apologize for what that girl said. Blossom nodded. Yeah, Izuku. It's not like you said those things in the first place. Besides, she was insulting everyone, not just us. Exactly, green bean. Those punks don't know a lick of what they're talking about when they showed their faces. It was clear to Izuku that she was still pretty angry about the whole trash talking. Not just her but the others, even Koda looked to be showing a slight scowl, as he still gave the blonde girl a side hug. Anyway, is that all you gotta say? Yup, there's that Buttercup charm that they all had to put up with. Izuku felt nervous at that but still held firm to his objective. Izuku abruptly bowed before them as he made his request. As you know, the sports festival is around the corner, and I know that we will all be training, vying for the top, and so, I ask for your help, all of you if possible, to train with me. I want to improve and do my level best in the competition. I want to show what Class 1A is made of too. He concluded his speech, leaving the only people in the whole hall to be stunned silence. The girls didn't know what to think, shocked, flattered, or a little nervous at what he said. Bump. Bubbles and Blossom were too preoccupied in their own thoughts to catch Buttercup punch the unsuspecting boy in the arm, before glaring at him, while he winced in pain. Buttercup. They said in unison, with Koda sweat dropping at the situation. Izuku was rubbing his arm in pain, opening his right eye to see what's up. Buttercup gave a little scowl before she talked. Okay, mister. First off, why did you basically ignore me, much less my sisters, after the USJ attack? Like seriously, Midoriya, I get you couldn't visit, but the least you could have done was ask about us when we came back, but all you did was create distance, dude. Not cool. The girls were starting to catch on this whole little skit and yanking Koda with them, leaving them to their devices. Izuku was initially wide-eyed stunned at that but quickly became a bit ashamed. Buttercup glanced at this but still crossed her arms at her chest. Well. Izuku didn't have the best excuse but still spoke. I am sorry Buttercup. I know I didn't say anything to you or your sisters. You got that right bub. Izuku retained his composure. It's just that I was a bit disappointed in myself after the whole attack. He said solemnly, looking at the girl. That seemed to tone down the scowl on her face as she gestured for him to explain. I felt so useless back there. Like seriously, when the chips were down and Sue and I were almost hurt badly. I had a chance to save everyone but I couldn't, maybe because I was too afraid or my current powers wouldn't at that moment be enough, I don't know. And when you came to save us, you were so brave and strong, like you weren't even scared but then you lost it and he did not get a chance to finish, when a hand was placed over his mouth, stopping his word vomit. Buttercup looked at the boy in front of her and sighed. Geez Izuku. Take a breath once in a while okay? Are you sure your ability to talk 100 words a minute isn't your actual quirk? She teased. He looked quite embarrassed, but before he could unnecessarily apologize, Buttercup continued. Look Green Bean, it's fine, and you shouldn't stay in Pity Town for so long, it's not really becoming of a hero, now is it? She gave a small smile, but quickly made a neutral face. Now, about the training, sure you can train with us. Means more practice for me and a step forward to whoop those pricks a dash. Be Buttercup. Izuku alarmed. She just rolled her eyes but nevertheless continued. Whatever. You meet us at our place these coming weeks and we will start training up until the day comes, got it? She didn't make it seem like he had a choice. Gesturing for his phone, in order to place in her number. Izuku rapidly nodded as he bowed once again. Yeah. Thanks again Buttercup. Taking back his phone, he quickly left. See ya then. Like that, he was gone. Buttercup just closed her eyes to get a breather but her sisters had other plans. Oh my stars. Buttercup. Bubbles bounced in, nearly tackling her older sister off her feet, much to her annoyance. She had a ticked expression. Don't start with me Bubbles. Not now. She turned to her starry-eyed sister, who was in a better mood, albeit annoying. She wouldn't say it out loud, but was happy that she was in a better mood. Blossom walked up to them with her own unamused expression. And when, pray tell, were you going to discuss this with us? A quizzical look aimed at her sister, who didn't look the slightest bit fazed. Just now, when you three ditched me wait. Where's the big friendly giant? She asked, surprisingly intrigued. Bubbles answered. Oh, he left already when you scared him with your vibes. That was not surprising to her in the slightest. Seriously Buttercup. Blossom face palmed at this. Oh lighten up Bloss. Besides, as long as we don't really let loose with the training or our powers as you said, it will all be good. Blossom was still not budging on her face. And it will be a great chance to help out a fellow hero as well. Besides, you two can geek out on hero info anyway. At that, Bubbles giggled, much to her sister's annoyance, but it subsided. She just rolled her eyes but conceded. Fine. But let's tell Midnight about our incoming guest, alright? To which they all agreed, walking along the halls. Therapy sessions with Hound Dog. It was later in the afternoon and just about time for the students to head on to the mandatory counseling session. It was a simple procedure. Each student would come in one at a time to Hound Dog's office, to sit down and he would ask certain questions that would lead him to the root of the person's psyche. The session started when Hound Dog angrily called the first student in. Mina Ashido, Class 1A. Hound Dog, good afternoon Ms. Ashido. Take a seat and we can begin the session. Calmly gesturing to the chair across from him. Mina, she nervously and quietly moves to the seat offered and sat down. Hound Dog, now, before we move on to what we are here for today. I want to let you know that whatever is said here will not be recalled back to Nizu. Only my assessment of if you are eligible to compete in the sports festival or not. But if I feel there are more complex situations I uncover, then I will give further notes. My quirk, dog, gives me the attributes and abilities of a dog, such as a heightened sense of smell. Do you understand? Mina, yes sir, keeping eye contact. Hound dog, nodding, he begins to speak. In your own words, could you describe the event for me? Ochiko Uraraka, Class 1A. Ochiko, the whole experience was less than fun. 13 was badly hurt and villains were pouring in by the minute. The scene was like a horror movie come to life. I thought we were done for. Hound dog, he just nodded. I see, well it is okay to feel like that in those tough situations. But exactly how often do you think about it and why? Tenya Ida, Class 1A. Ida, sometimes I wonder how I could have done better. Maybe if I was just fast enough to get around those villains, I could have called for help sooner. He said, with a guilt-ridden face. Hound dog, but what could you have done alone? From the reports, it was implied that you found a way out only with the help of your classmates. I understand wanting to do everything yourself, but if you can't see all the angles, isn't better to lean on others' eyes to help? Ida. Hound dog, have your friendship suffered? Eijiro Kirishima, Class 1A. Kirishima, not at all sir. It was a very scary thing but I got through it by remembering the friends I have. Hound dog, he nodded. That is very good thinking. Some of your classmates told me about how you came from your battle carrying one of the unconscious classmate on your back. That was very heroic of you. Kirishima, he smiled modestly. It was nothing. I saw that she was in danger and had to act fast. That's what a hero is all about, right? Hound dog, right. That is very true, Eijiro. But in doing so, a hero is often risking their own lives in turn. Can you honestly say you can do this profession for the rest of your life, knowing what happened today could happen again? Izukumidoriya, Class 1A. Izuku, it's true that being a hero is not all glamour and fame, but I wouldn't change a thing if it meant I can save those in need. People who feel powerless to do anything. So yes, I would. Hound dog, he nodded. I see. By those who seem powerless, yes, it the whole thing about being a hero, but you seem to feel stronger towards that term. Could you have ever felt like that during the event? Bubbles Kayama, Class 1A. Bubbles, she looked down. I did feel somewhat useless. I wanted to save my classmates and sisters, but it felt like I came short. Hound dog, I understand wanting to be stronger, in order to protect the ones you love. I heard from the students that when members of your class, your sisters were taken away and the injury to 13 happened. You fought the mist guy by yourself. Is that true? Bubbles, yes sir. I was so angry about it and I just wanted him to bring back my sisters. Hound dog, I understand. Was this a time you felt so much emotions that it caused your powers to flare up? Buttercup Kayama, Class 1A. Buttercup, I lost control because I had to save them. Those stupid villains annoyed me to no end. Hound dog, quite the temper you have. Has that ever caused friction with others, and if so, was the event a further push to it? Buttercup, she stared at him but sighed. I can say that childhood was not the best moments for me. But I only lost control because I was scared. She bitterly admitted it. Hound dog, I understand Ms. Kayama, and fear is a normal response to something that brings us anxiety or makes us uncomfortable. Sometimes when one is anxious, they tend to feel like they lost the little control they have. Did that happen or has it previously happened before? Blossom Kayama, Class 1A Class Representative. Blossom. Hound dog, Ms. Blossom, I understand that talking to a counselor is ideal, but if you do not answer these questions, you will be barred from the festival. Do you really want that? He said with a stern but compassionate tone that seemed to get to her. Blossom, sir, what do you want me to say, huh? That I basically let my class, not to mention my sisters down, when I got ambushed by some sneak attack, leaving me unconscious and unable to help. I lost all the control and couldn't even help and fight villains that threatened to hurt the people I love. You know how it makes me feel? Useless. Eyes filled with sense of self-hate and wanting to be perfect. It then left. Hound dog, he nodded, but gave her a sympathetic look. I understand where you are coming from. But I can imagine what you all experienced to make you feel this way. Blossom, she wiped away the traitoress that threatened to fall and looked up at him with a deep sigh. Trust me, you wouldn't understand. As the school week concluded, although it did not deter anyone on their determination to train towards the sports festival that will be coming up in weeks' time. Everyone, in all the classes at UA are working on various aspects of themselves, whether it be their stamina, endurance, strength or whether even their tactical expertise. No one wants to give less than their best when the day comes around. That could be said about a certain green-haired boy, who knows a little something about pressure and wanting to prove something others and himself. Izuku was on a mission to do his best at the sports festival, citing as a chance to be the next all-might, and though he was not feeling great about that comment, he nevertheless wanted to show everyone that he was more than capable to being a hero. If he wanted to be a hero, he knew that he had to get a handle on his powers or at least stop hurting himself while using it. He has done it before at the USJ attack, but that was more out of concern than it was about focusing. So he realized that he would need some help in power and control. He would have gone to All Might, but he didn't want to bother him, seeing that he already had his own problems with maintaining his remaining one for all at the moment. Izuku did however get the help of 3 interesting girls at his school, in his class. He doesn't know much about them, only that they are transfer students from another country, it would seem. That would explain their uncharacteristic attitudes unlike most. The first time he had seen them was on the news, to do with a villain attack on one of the pro-heroes, Midnight. He actually had the pleasant surprise to be rescued by them months ago, which was a shock to him, being that they broke the laws on quirk usage without a license. After a series of events and bumping into certain influences now in his life, he has managed to get to a certain point in his life that allows him to achieve his childhood dream. That said, it may still be hard. Midnight's house. It was Saturday morning and the girls have woken up to start their training for the sports festival. They already informed and asked Ms. Namuri about a boy coming over to train with them. After the initial reaction of her poking about their potential love lives, the girls made it clear that it was Buttercup's love life involved, and that's how the comedy show started, with the Ravenet trying to debunk those lies. When everything was settled, Namuri happily agreed for them to host him, though she won't be around, as she had errands to run and a patrol later. The girls were left alone to put up a plan, or rather Blossom was, before their guest were to arrive. They informed him ahead of time that they will start at around 7:30 a.m. A few minutes passed and a couple of knocks could be heard from the front door. Guessing it might be Izuku, Bubbles took the liberty to answer the door, and as soon as she did so, she was greeted with a familiar nervous smile. Izuku was standing at the door, wearing a sleeveless green hoodie, black knee-length workout shorts and a pair of red and white sneakers, a small fanny pack over his shoulders. "Good morning, Bubbles," he addressed with a bow. He saw that she was wearing black yoga pants with shorts over them and a blue yoga tank top. Bubbles smiled. "Good morning, Izuku. You know you don't have to bow to me. We are friends after all." Izuku was a little embarrassed, taken aback. Friends?" Bubbles just gave a small giggle. "Yeah, of course, anyway come on in, the others are waiting in the gym." She took his arm and dragged inside, closing the door behind them. As Izuku was walking down the area, he could not help but be a little nervous being in a pro-hero's house. He deduced some time ago that the girls were living under Ms. Midnight. The last names were his first giveaway, and the fact that he saw Midnight ride with the girls to the hospital after the USJ attack, his theories were proven after asking them in person some time ago when they had a chat. Izuku was brought out of his thoughts, as one of his hosts made a stop and he realized that they were in a gym at the back of the house. Next to it were the spacious grounds. He admired the equipment they had around. Buttercup and Blossom were there. Blossom was on the mat meditating. Her hair was kept in a loose messy bun, wearing a red tee, red sweatpants and pink sport sandals. Her body emitted a pink glow that went over to cover some dumbbells as they were lifted above her head. Buttercup was wearing her neon green-yellow sports bra and shorts, barefooted, wearing combat gloves. She was practicing some punches on a punching bag. "Hey girls. Izuku is here," Bubbles announced, trying to get her sister's attentions. That did it, as each girl stopped what they were doing and came over. Blossom started. "Good morning Izuku. Nice you came." Izuku nodded. "Glad to be here. I am thankful for the help." Buttercup rounded behind the greenette. "Well then, let's hit it." Smacking the boy's back as she gave a smile. They went to the center of the room to warm up, each doing their own individual stretches. After it was deemed fit that they were loosened up a bit, they begun the training. "Alright everyone." Blossom clapped. "Now, the sports festival is only a few weeks away and we want to be ready for whatever happens. Now, let's do some strength, endurance and stamina training, then we can move on to power training. Sound good?" She inquired of them. "No problem boss. Got it read." "Yeah, sounds great." Nodding at that. "Okay, we will start this out with some strength training." She groaned, knowing what was going to happen. Buttercup gave a sly smirk at that. "Buttercup will lead us on the strength part." That was followed by an evil chuckle that honestly made Izuku's BLD curl. "Alright ladies," emerald eyes alight with mischief. "Let's do this." For the next hour or so they were all subjected to Buttercup's boot camp. The exercises that followed were a series of calf raises, lunges, squats, tricep dips, push-ups, weight lifts, planks, leg raises and deadlifts, emphasis on the dead part, as those were no joke. Buttercup by far was the most competitive person you would meet, being that she also doesn't give any slack to her own sisters when they do train together. By the time they were done, within 2.5 hours, they were panting and some were drenched in sweat. Wiping a touch of sweat from her face. "Alright chumps, how you doing?" she asked. Blossom was bent over, trying to take in as much air as she could, while sending death glares at her raven-haired sister. Bubbles was on her peach trying to steady her heart after that. Izuku was sprawled on the floor, waiting for the sweet embrace of death to finally take him. What did I get myself into? After a short 30-minute break, the guys moved on to power training/combat, to better work on their abilities and see where to improve. Ducking from a weak attempt at a punch. Pretty weak shot dude. The punches kept coming, with Buttercup blocking each one, not giving Izuku an inch. The drill was simple. They would each fight each other, with no powers at the moment and basically perform another warm-up. The girls first started out with fighting each other, and then Izuku would fight one of them. Nice try green bean. Buttercup blocks Izuku's punch, moving to attempt to give a high kick he witnessed Bubbles do a while ago, for which she easily dodged it. When it was Izuku's turn, he chose to fight with Buttercup, as more of a challenge to him, he thought. The fight was very informative, even though Izuku was ways behind her abilities, he could see some areas of improvement, with helpful critique. Buttercup, feigning a strike, crouched down to give a high kick that sent Izuku flying a few feet onto the ground, sprawled out in defeat. "I hope I didn't break any bones," Buttercup calmly said, as she made her way over the defeated boy. She could see his dazed look, stretched out her hand. "You alive there green bean?" Izuku groaned, sitting up to take a hold of her hand. "I think my bruises have bruises." That made Buttercup stifle a laugh. "Oh come on string bean. Your form is pretty shitty but I see you still remembered what I showed you months ago." That made him smile at the memory of the first time they ever met. Giving him a slight shove. May not be professional, but totally not horrible. Getting him out of his mind. Izuku just gave a less than thrilled smile. Bubbles piped in. Hey guys, how about you two move on to power training? I think that would be best. A fine idea, that no one had any problem with. Don't worry Izuku, Buttercup has always been a tough/rough fighter, even when we were younger. Blossom said, sitting in a meditation form, lifting Bubbles in the air, much to her joy. Wee! Bubbles exclaimed. Yeah. She is usually the one who fights hard, doesn't help that she likes MMA. Joyfully performing aerial routines and flips. Whoa! That's so awesome. Izuku finally dusted himself, he was admiring the way they had control and effort on their abilities. Buttercup at this point went inside to get everyone water. Blossom nodded. It's just about control and focus. And a lot of fun. She did a couple more spins, before being gently let down. Hey Izuku, you said you wanted to train with us, what specifically are you having problems with, your powers? Izuku awkwardly nodded. Yeah, just trying to get a better handle on it. Well you did say that your quirk causes you to get hurt. You gain immense strength from what I have seen but you wind up breaking your bones. Blossom, though trying to give off a neutral expression, could not help showing a bit of uneasiness at the double-edged sword characteristics of the boy's power. Izuku nodded, yeah, since I did not learn how to use it early, on the count I was a late bloomer. It has not been easy to say the least. A nervous smile followed. He didn't like to lie but knew he couldn't reveal his secret. Well I understand, but Buttercup told us that you had a trainer a while back, didn't this trainer ever give you some pointers or even tell you how to use your quirk? Bubbles asked. He couldn't help but remember the All Might's advice, always clench your peach cheeks before you yell smash. Easy to say that it was not the most understandable point of advice yet. He gave a nervous chuckle, well my couch helped me to build up my body to best suit my quirk. Not much on how to use it, I'm just learning it on my own. Rubbing his right arm absently. Bubbles and Blossom could not help but feel a little relation to how his story sounded familiar. But chose to brush that thought aside, but another thought did cross the redhead's mind. Izuku. From what I saw initially, you seem to build up your strength into a specific limb before you attack, am I right? She inquired thoughtfully. Initially caught off guard, yeah I do. He answered honestly. Blossom hummed. Your quirk is an emitter type, as it stockpiles power and enhances one's physical abilities. From what I gathered at the quirk assessment test, you directed all that power into at first your arm but then into your fingers, leaving it damaged from the strain you placed on it. Izuku was awed at her deduction but nevertheless answered with an sheepish yes, still finding that day more or less draining. So what Bloss? Bubbles curiously asked, sitting on the ground. Blossom thoughtfully said. I think his quirk's traits are not so different from a certain sister's own quirk, if I may say. Before she could go on, Buttercup, as if on cue, came over, holding 4 water bottles, then proceeded to toss everyone their own water bottle. Taking a stand next to Bubbles. So, what are we talking about? Nonchalantly asking, as she took a big gulp of her water. Bubbles replied. Blossom was just trying to get a better understanding of Izuku's quirk. Taking a sip of her water. She nodded. Yeah, I was about to suggest to Izuku to do what you did when you needed to control yours. That got Buttercup's head to turn so fast at that, you could swear you felt a breeze forming. What? Credit to her subtleness, she whisper-screamed while Izuku didn't notice. Blossom signaled with her eyes as she conveyed, nothing too detailed, I meant how you were able to control some bursts of quirk. The hints were well received, for Buttercup calmed down, albeit not before she gave a glare at her sister. At that moment, Izuku suddenly remembered something. Oh yeah. I remember you were about to tell Aztsu and I about your quirk, but we were interrupted by the attack. Blossom turned her stare now at the raven-haired girl, as if to say, what did you say, but Buttercup quickly shut it down with a stare of her own that said, nothing red. Continuing, if you don't mind, what is it? It seems really interesting, how did you learn to control it? Izuku finally asked quite enthusiastically. The girls' sweat dropped at their peers' enthusiasm, but Buttercup rolled her eyes. First of all, take it down a notch, buddy. Secondly, my quirk allows me to create and use plasma energy. As to make a point, lifted her hand and formed a ball of plasma energy, much to the awe of her quirk analyst classmate. Blossom further went on with the explanation. She can also use it to boost her own strength and abilities such like yours, and that's why I suggested her as an example. She finished. With rolled eyes, well thank you Teacher Blossom, Bubbles teasingly said, taking another sip of her drink much to Buttercup's amusement. That's really impressive. Izuku now gave a thoughtful expression. That could also explain your strength and the tolerance to the heat given off by bakugou quirk, citing that plasma is a hotter source than fire and your quirk could have secondary characteristics that makes you resistant or simply immune to heat. But could that be really possible? Imagine the effects it could have, especially if true invulnerability, could be a great matchup against other fire user quirks. Could it be a matchup against Endeavor, but it would also depend on how high the temperature a person could stand, maybe hotter than the sun. Izuku's ramblings were cut off when Buttercup shoved his water bottle into his mouth. Geez man. Didn't we already talk about your word vomiting? Eesh. Buttercup sighed. He makes Blossom's speeches seem like an anecdote. Bubbles mockingly said. Hey. Blossom said in her defensive, but secretly could not argue on her classmates' excessive words. They all laughed at that, which made Izuku, who initially felt a bit embarrassed, realize that they were only teasing, laugh as well. So Red, what are you getting at? Buttercup done, asked her sister. Well. What I was getting at, was that can't Izuku transfer the energy all over his body, initially distributing the power equally, as to lessen the potential damage that it could lead to your body? I have a thought that like any emitter quirk like yourself, or anyone who is starting off learning their abilities, they need to start slow, and letting it flow in and around the body on command continuously. Blossom explained. She could see the realization growing his head, so she went to use an example. It's like a circuit diagram, if you may. Where your quirk is the battery, a power source, and we have bulbs that represent certain areas of your body and switches that allow the current to move freely through the wires attached. Now, you seem to allow your quirk to activate or switch onto a certain bulb, thereby allowing light to shine, but in turn, it can cause strain on the one bulb, due to the sudden influx of power, and short-term use, doing that will end up damaging the bulb aka your limbs. Now, I believe allowing the free flow of current through all the bulbs, will allow for a better power usage and control. Blossom concluded her explanation. For a minute, Izuku was thinking at the example given to him by Blossom, the concept was not above his head. He could admit that he was using 100% cowl whenever he activated his quirk, in doing so without training it and only to one limb, winding it up with broken bones. The idea seemed so simple, that he felt ashamed that he didn't think of it sooner. Granted, I didn't wield this power for very long, but ugh. If his power was the battery, then he must allow the currents to pass freely through all the bulbs of his body. Izuku closed his eyes and made an attempt to activate his quirk, this time, differently. Allow the currents to pass through, let's allow all the switches on. After a few minutes, there was a round of woe, as the girls were dazzled by what they were witnessing. Izuku was activating his powers, allowing the energy to flow throughout his body and not just to one area at a time. Instead of summoning one for all, he directed it to spread throughout his body, letting the little bit of the power flow in at a time. Red vein-like energy surge, wrapped around areas of his body, legs, arms and face, as teal-colored lightning danced around him, a smell of ozone was in the air. When done he felt happy that it worked, but he also felt tired. Before he hit the ground, a soft but firm hand caught his arm, laying him gently on the ground to rest. Soon panic was heard. Izuku, are you okay? Are you sick? Was it your powers? Did it cause too much strain? Are you ? A swift chop to the head silenced the worryful PPG. Relax Bubbles, Izuku must just be tired from that quirk use. Also a combination of Buttercup's training session. Blossom said bluntly, while Bubbles tended to her sore head, compliments of an annoyed Buttercup. Izuku easily steadied his head and noticed he was in someone's arms. He looked on to see a familiar scowling look that turned to stare back at him with a slight hint of worry. He gave what seemed to be a whisper, "Buttercup." A small smile on his lips, that no one seemed to pay mind to. Buttercup sighed with a small smile that quickly turned neutral. "Alright Green Bean, time for everyone to take another break." Looking at her sisters for any objections, there was none. They were all inside, sitting at the kitchen to have some juice and sandwiches the girls helped make with Namiri some hours ago for lunch. When Izuku came to not so long ago, he objected to not being a bother, that he will eat later, but the girls, with added heat from Buttercup, insisted that it was no problem. They all ate in silence, and when done, Blossom wanted to go and meditate some more, while Bubbles opted to take a quick nap. She didn't miss a chance to make a comment that went along the lines of, "Enjoy lunch you two lovebirds." With a quick giggle that followed. The blue PPG immediately turned around the corner, missed being hit by a green blast that left a small-sized hole in the wall, left by a ticked-off Buttercup. Izuku obliviously didn't catch that but was suddenly surprised by the sound and sight of the wall being destroyed. He chose to ignore it, not wanting to be dragged into a sister's dispute. They too sat in silence eating, when Buttercup noticed Izuku's facial expression. "Hey Green Bean, you have been smiling this whole time we have been eating." "What? Are the sandwiches that good?" Buttercup joked, but was interested in the guy's recent good mood. Oh. The green-haired boy didn't realize his emotions were on his sleeve so easily. Rubbing the back his head, embarrassed, "It's nothing. I am just happy that I got some training from you guys, and even though it was only the first day of training, I learned a great deal. I just wanted to say thanks for helping." He gave a happy smile. Seeing the joy on her classmate's face, she couldn't help but give a small smile of her own. "Hey, it's no problem Green Bean." That turned into a sadistic smirk. "Besides, we still have 2 more weeks remaining, and now that you can partially use your powers, I won't go easy on you anymore." A menacing laugh escaped her lips. Izuku, hearing that, still held his smile, but only had one thought racing through his mind at that. "I'm dead." Izuku could honestly say that the advice he gotten from Blossom was invaluable in his training. He learned to use one for all. More specifically, he learned to further distribute the flow of power throughout his body, like currents through his body. The hard part was him trying to move, but with some much-needed incentive from Buttercup, he was able to become mobile while his quirk was on. Granted, he could only manage to use about 9% cowl at the moment, but he was happy nonetheless at the results of it. He was also working some fighting styles to best suit his power. In that short amount of time, Izuku jotted down some ideas in his notebook that might come in handy later in his own fighting style. In the time span of the training with the girls, he noticed their small individual fighting styles that seemed to work well with their characters. Blossom's style was more involving self-discipline, reading and redirecting a person's attack. She is as agile as her sisters but not very proficient in hand-to-hand. Buttercup has a more MMA type of style, with more strength to her powers than her sisters. Bubbles' style is keener towards acrobatics, rhythm, flexibility, and kicks, much like capoeira. Buttercup gave him the idea to incorporate not just fists but legs too, to not just be an imitation of his hero. Glad that she didn't mean more to what she said. Izuku knew that he had to do his absolute best this sports festival, not just for himself but. "I don't care about your worthless quirk. I will beat you no matter what. And those 3 freaks you call friends of yours. I am going to be the #1 hero and I won't allow some extras to get in my way. So enjoy your win, because it won't last." Also to show a friend of his that he has some competition on his tail, and he won't back down either. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 5. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author ChiWriters on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.